Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on a Monday afternoon on August the 6th, 2018, and we have a very interesting turn of events across the Pacific. It is incredibly busy with regards to what's going on there with tropical storms and hurricanes, and of course on the other end of the equation here is the Atlantic, which is very quiet for the most part as far as tropical activity is concerned. Front and center, of course, is Hurricane Hector. And the Air Force reconnaissance aircraft went into Hector this afternoon and found that it is almost a Category 5 hurricane. We've got the infrared satellite loop here, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. And one of the things we've noticed is the cloud tops looks like they've warmed a little bit, so we may have seen, certainly have seen a burst of strengthening going on today with the Air Force plane, I believe. I'm just going to check really quick. I thought I saw 933 on the advisory, and I have to go to the Central Pacific for this. So if you ever... This is the Central Pacific Hurricane website. If you are interested, is www. I'm sorry, you don't even need that, obviously. prh.noaa.gov/cphc. Okay, and sometimes they don't exactly make it easy for you to get to the advisory here. 936 millibars. I'm sorry, 15.2 north. 143.1 west, maximum sustained winds 155 miles an hour, so it's almost a Category 5 hurricane, moving west at 16, 936 millibars. Now, I brought up the Hurricane Center's forecast. This was from the 5 p.m. Eastern Time advisory, by the way. The hurricane expected to remain a major hurricane as it approaches 155 degrees west. And then the logic in the discussion is that there's drier air in the environment surrounding the hurricane, and some of that's going to get involved, and that will cause it to weaken a bit as it moves westward. But the models have been shifting a little southward with every run, and the reason for that, as we noted yesterday, this should have been the point where we would have seen Hector gaining latitude, and it is moving. Looks like it's moving north of due west, but it would need to have a little bit more of a northward component of motion. I'm just wondering how far north is it going to get to, maybe 16.5 before it turns back west again. And this is, this is responding to the weakness in the the weakness that's just to the north and east of Hector at the moment, but a big ridge building north of Hawaii will turn this back to the west. This, of course, is going to be key. It has to turn back to the west, otherwise we're talking about an increasing threat for the Hawaiian Islands. Still remains a pretty compact system, though. If you look at it on the visible loop here, I'll make the picture a bit bigger for you. And it's still kind of a small hurricane, but notice it's circular. And it's symmetrical. This is what happens when we get storms that become strong Category 4s or Category 5 hurricanes. They get that symmetric look to them. And, the pinprick eye nudging on a course north of due west, if it were to continue on that course, then you're talking about a very close call for the big island of Hawaii. But as you saw in the forecast map that the Hurricane Center has put out, very confident on the idea of a gradual turn to the west. All the track model guidance shows it. The global models all show it. So it would have to be big time wrong on a ridge developing north of the Hawaiian Islands, I think, in order for this to be a threat. But still, it's going to be fairly close. Certainly going to have an impact for the coastal waters, and you certainly don't want to take the eye off the ball here if you are on the Hawaiian Islands. Okay. This is a serious hurricane, obviously. If everything goes according to the plans of the models, this will be a close call, heave a sigh of relief. But while it's out here, it's probably a very good time to make sure you've got some kind of hurricane plan in place in the event that you have to execute it, okay? So you at least can have that advantage at the moment. But everything that we see says that this should be turning back to the west. And as we've been pointing out how busy the Pacific is, here's the wider view, and you can see Hector. You could see a disturbance to the east of that. East of that disturbance is now Hurricane John, which is strengthened very rapidly today, and it looks like an eye has formed. And to the east of that, along the coast of Mexico, is Tropical Storm Ileana. And actually, there's a very interesting thing that's going on here. These two systems are so close together that the expanding outflow from John is having an impact now on Ileana. Look at what, if the very first frame here on the satellite loop, I'm going to just stop it here at the beginning. The very first frame, circular look, you can see evidence there. You see where the purple is? It looks like there's a bit of a pinprick eye. This was earlier today, but what happened as the day wore on, as John to the east, and it's not that far to the east, it's only about 400 miles or so east of, John is at 108, and Ileana is at 102 degrees west. That's 6 degrees. That's a little less than, they're a little less than 400 miles apart. You can watch how John expands here, and as a result, the outflow begins to have an impact on the circulation of Ileana. And now the Hurricane Center has backed away from the idea of this storm, of Ileana becoming a hurricane. And in fact, they are forecasting that as John continues to intensify overnight and during the day tomorrow, its expanding outflow will wind up causing Ileana to perhaps dissipate and be absorbed inside the circulation of Hurricane John. When they're that close together, one of them's got to go. There's only so much room in the atmosphere, and sometimes they just kind of fight it out and maintain, say, a level intensity where neither one of them gets too strong. But it's fairly clear here that we're seeing Hurricane John becoming the dominant feature. Meanwhile, in the central Atlantic, we still have this disturbed weather that's about halfway out. There's a cold upper low here. There's a low-level circulation, and it looked like there was some thunderstorms that developed near the center today, actually near and northeast of the center. Still, though, a lot of that is getting blown away to the northeast. Even if this system does wind up acquiring tropical characteristics over the next day or so, it's already starting to move toward the north. So this is not going to have any kind of impact. And with respect to the Pacific tropics, which we just showed you how busy they are, the Atlantic still remains very anemic. The intertropical convergence zone in the Atlantic showing some weak tropical waves there, but nothing that poses a threat of developing into anything even minor. And that intertropical convergence zone is still fairly far to the south, along and south of 10 degrees north. So this is going to, at least at this point, you're still having this dust from the Sahara coming off. So we really don't see anything with regards to tropical storm formation here out in the Atlantic. So there's that, again, the Hurricane Center's forecast, taking it well south even of the Big Island, which is the furthest south of all the islands. Just to show you in terms of the model track guidance that we have here, here is, this is from this afternoon. You'll notice that none of the hurricane tracking models are taking, I'm going to shrink this picture down just a bit. Hang on here, folks. There we go. Just so I can control it a bit better. All of the hurricane tracking models take it south, even of the Big Island, and the vast majority, except for the two of them, all of them are very tightly clustered in about a 30-mile spread. So you're talking about a system that's going to pass a good 150 to 180 miles south of the Big Island of Hawaii, I would think that the land impacts here are going to be minimal. So that is what the hurricane tracking model is showing us. And then when we look at the GFS Ensembles, same idea. Virtually all of the members of the GFS Ensembles take it to the south. And as one of the folks on my Facebook page sent me a message pointing out, the badly initialized GFS model and the models themselves, because you're talking about something that's got a pressure down at 936 millibars. But when we look at the GFS map here, and we've actually have the new GFS that we can take a look at, and we'll go to the Central Pacific here. This is 8 o'clock tonight, has a pressure of 974, okay? So it shows you how off it is. It's only off by 32 millibars. But the GFS on this run, again, you see it does kind of move north of due west and then turns west during Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And it's a very, very tight, very, very small, compact storm here. The impacts to the land are going to be, in my view, minimal if this track is verifies. And again, the next thing after that will be, does it cross the international date line and then acquire a new name? All the models here are in line, by the way. So we can look at the European. The European actually has been consistently further south than all the models. And again, there's the past. This is Wednesday morning. Here's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then on it goes on up into east of 180 degrees west, crosses the international date line, and we can say goodbye to that. Here's, I just shifted that a bit further back so you could see it better. So here we go. Here's the European, and that moves out. By the way, if you notice here, this is the system that's in between Hector and John, that the model does, the European does rev up a little bit, but it never really gets much beyond either, it seems, a minimal tropical storm, but it does kind of hold an impact circulation in the longer range and moves it north, just north of the Hawaiian Islands. That might wind up being a tropical depression, who knows. But the big issue, of course, obviously, is Hector. If everything behaves, this is going to be a big sigh of relief, and that will be that. Okay, let's come back home and take a look at what's happening here in the east, because we had a hot day today, and in fact, when I bring up the current temperatures here, these are readings as of 6 p.m., upper 80s to low 90s, getting a little bit of sea breeze impact now over Long Island and parts of southern and southeastern New England, but much of the east, really, this is kind of typical August. That we had some highs up in a few places in my neck of the woods at 94 or 5, but you notice it's not crazy hot anywhere, which is good. I mean, most of these highs, we're talking about temperatures generally in the mid to upper 80s. This is all certainly reasonable. You get down into the Gulf states, we're talking upper 80s to low 90s. Start to get a bit hotter. Of course, you go 90s to near 100 as you get back through Texas and Oklahoma. Again, nothing that really is out of the ordinary. And we do have excessive heat issues in the Southwest, where we're looking at temperatures 110, 115 degrees or higher. Looks like Phoenix is sitting at about 111. I'm trying to see what some of these temperatures in interior California and near Las Vegas, 108, 106. And we're also seeing some fairly hot temperatures even in coastal areas. Trying to take a look at LA. Looks like LA right now, 81 close to the coast. You start to get inland in Los Angeles. It looks like it's, you start getting temperatures up closer to 90, and then you go much further inland and you're near Arcadia and some Pasadena, and it's up around 100. Glendale at 99, Riverside at 104. All right. Can't seem to find Palm Springs. One of the nice places, by the way. I was in Palm Springs many years ago. I haven't been back since. In the northwest, actually not too bad up here. Some excessive heat areas up in the state of Washington inland, but most of the temperatures as you go across into Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado all seem to be fairly reasonable. Now let's view the radars just to make sure we've got nothing crazy going on. I'm going to just make the window a little bit smaller here. And I'm going to bring up the U.S. radar and take a look at what's happening. Not a whole lot of activity today. We do have some action going on in the southeast and down in the Florida Panhandle. Further south into the Florida, just some scattered cells that have developed and are moving westward. We see some activity across the Gulf states and some scattered activity as you move up into the Ohio Valley, a little more organized, moving out of eastern Michigan and then back up through the plains, the northern and central plains, and a little bit of action down in New Mexico with regards to the monsoon stuff that goes on over there. And let me just make myself a little bit smaller. We'll bring up the Storm Prediction Center's map here and show you the risk areas, and then we'll come back to the GFS and take a look at where we're going. And this is the risk area tonight. Slight risk, northwest Ohio, northern Indiana, in through north central Illinois. Another area of slight risk where we have 2 severe thunderstorm watches up back through Utah and northeastern New Mexico. And also a small severe thunderstorm watch in southeastern Michigan and extreme northwestern Ohio. So that's the story for today with regards to the severe weather. Now we'll go back to our friendly neighborhood weather model and see where it wants to go in the longer haul. And okay, to the top we go. There. So we do have a weather front that's going to be coming into the east for Wednesday, and actually there probably will be some storms approaching Tuesday night if they hold together in my neck of the woods. Looks like there could be some hefty action Tuesday evening also in parts of southwestern Missouri, northeastern Oklahoma. That front is going to have a bit of a difficult time moving through here Wednesday into Wednesday night, but it does get through. And then maybe a slight break, an ever so slight break in the humidity Thursday into Friday before we get the next system, and that looks like we'll probably get into some rain and showers Saturday into Saturday night. And there still might be some stuff around on Sunday. We're going to have some issues when we look at the upper air, because we are going to see, here's another instance, by the way, where the GFS seems to have had the upper hand over the European, because now the European's kind of doing the same thing here. But here's your trough that stays pretty weak, but just enough of the westerlies come down to bring a bit of relief, a minimal amount of relief to the humidity. The temperatures are still going to be quite warm, but then we have energy that is going to drop southwestward from the St. Lawrence Valley and cut off over the Great Lakes. So we've got a setup for another trough in the eastern part of the United States. It's amazing how insistent models are with this idea, and even though every once in a while they try to take a break from it, it seems to find a way. Now, I want to point out that if we were to have a tropical system off the southeast coast this weekend and early next week, it would be very problematic with this kind of a setup. We don't have a tropical system to worry about. There's nothing out there, nor is there anything pending. I'm just illustrating the fact that you do have a flow here along the east coast and the upper ridge near Bermuda, a southerly flow along the east coast from Florida on up to about southern New Jersey. It's more like a south-southwest flow, but certainly that upper low would influence a system that was sitting off the southeast coast and trying to pull it northwestward. We don't have that, but we are going to have a flow of tropical moisture up the eastern seaboard as long as that trough is there. And the earlier run kept it around for a while, so we could be in for another 4 or 5 day stretch of downpours and thunderstorms during the week of August 13th, well, Sunday's August 12th. So from the 12th right into Wednesday the 15th, before that trough finally lifts out. And then there's another trough that tries to drop in, although this one looks to be progressive. In other words, it moves along, so it would bring a cold front through, and that would be that. So interesting developments here with regards to the next couple of weeks. Certainly that the idea that there could be another trough into the east and another round of some potentially heavy rains in the long-range period is something that I think we need to pay attention to, especially for folks in the mid-Atlantic states and in parts of the Northeast, because we've had a considerable amount of rain, and of course parts of the mid-Atlantic states in interior Virginia and West Virginia have had more than a considerable amount of rain. They've had a Noah's Ark amount of rain in the last couple of months. So we're going to be watching very closely the developments here with respect to the system that is out, that trough that is dropping in. Okay, so I'm coming onto the board right now, so I'm just waiting. All your conversation is loading up, so I can come back and first off, let me just immediately say thank you to Nick Cortese for hitting Super Chat, for William Huber for hitting Super Chat, and for Johnny Quest for hitting Super Chat. Though, Johnny, I think you might want to, get maybe some more buckets. If you wind up with that trough in the east again, you're going to have some more rain problems coming your way starting this weekend and lasting lasting through the middle part of next week. Jason, I think John does absorb Ileana, and that seems to be very evident, as that's what's going on the satellite right now. John strengthening so very rapidly. When you have a storm that's less than 400 miles apart, there's no room, and one of them's got to go. William Huber, yeah, the impact on Hawaii with the category, let's say it does weaken somewhat. I would think that at the you would probably have at least a category 3 on the approach as it reaches the same the same longitude of Hawaii, maybe weakens to a 2 as it moves westward from there. But the impact to the coastal waters will be substantial. So the marine issues are definitely going to be there. And in fact, they already have tropical storm warnings up for the coastal waters offshore, 20 miles, I believe 20 miles or out or further out offshore. But this is definitely going to have marine impact. But land impacts are a different story. And I also, by the way, do not, I don't have a full grasp of CLIMO over Hawaii and how it works, because the folks at the Weather Service there indicating the possibility that there could be some showers and maybe some heavy bands of rain that come in, but that could be just from the tropical moisture that surrounds it, and that could create some local flash flooding there. But the core of the hurricane is going to be way offshore, the way it looks at the moment. And again, if you are watching from Hawaii, you got to keep your guard up for a little while until we can get this, it gets that turn back to the west, which I think it's going to do. As we said, every model shows it. But again, the impact of the coastal waters will be real. Anthony Orr, our resident statistician and horse race lover, no named storms in the Atlantic Basin from July 16th to August 5th, and the streak continues. This is only the third time since the year 2000 where we've had no named storms in the Atlantic in that time frame, July 16th to August 5th. Obviously, by the way, the fact that you have the Pacific as busy as it is, and it usually is the case. When one side is very, very busy, the other side is very, very quiet. And that is where we're at right now. All the action's on the Pacific side. So what I would suggest is that watch the Pacific in the next week or so as the activity in the Pacific, because eventually it will die off. Once the activity in the Pacific dies off, that could be the clue as to when the Atlantic revs up. to some degree. Although you wonder whether there's going to be a lot of limiting influences with respect to the strong wind conditions in the upper atmosphere that exist across the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and in the Atlantic right now, plus the colder than normal ocean that's been observed, especially in the tropical Atlantic. I don't know how much revving up you're going to get. Nick, you're throwing too many questions that you've already thrown at me many times. It's summer, it's humid, that's what happens. That's why they call it the August dog days, by the way, because we can have long stretches in August with the warm ocean and the high humidity. Chances of thunderstorms or rain from eastern Tennessee from Bradley Bean. Let me just real fast, I'll pull up the radar here in front of me. And please, folks, if you're watching, as I've said many times, please make sure you check. This is 6:23 Eastern Time. There's not a whole lot going on in Eastern Tennessee, by the way, as of 6:24. I don't know how much you're going to get tonight. You're probably going to start to see perhaps more of an increase in activity tomorrow as that weather front moves on through. So I'm sorry, just to get back to what I was saying. Remember, if you're watching this on a replay later on tonight, the radars are obviously dated, as is the information with regards to Hurricane Hector. So with respect to severe weather, please check your local National Weather Service office, which you can check on by going to weather.gov. And also, with respect to Hurricane Hector or any tropical storm, please consult your local National Weather Service office or your local government officials with regarding information that you need in order to make whatever decisions you need to make. Okay, so you want to access that. You know your own areas far better than I do, obviously. You can go to the Hurricane Center at nhc.noaa.gov. You can access if you're watching from Hawaii, you can access the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, and you can also access that via weather.gov or nhc.noaa.gov. Okay, that's your go-to place. All right, so let me get to some more. That section of the island is rainforest of 5 miles. William Hoover. It's been many years since I've been to Hawaii, so yeah, you are indeed correct. David Fuller, I'm not too revved up at the moment about the possibility of severe weather. I don't, the daytime heating tomorrow, it still will get to near 90. I suppose some strong thunderstorms could pop up. Rain, I think, is probably going to be the bigger issue. And by the way, we did have a couple of pop-ups late this afternoon in a few isolated areas in parts of South Jersey. We're under a heat advisory. Joyce Mack, again today, yet no heat lightning at night. You do sometimes see that. Preliminary winter forecast date, too early, okay? I still got hurricane season on my mind, Bradley. Too early. Scott Briller, guess I picked a bad week to book Wildwood starting Saturday. Yeah, you might have. Although, sometimes, here's the thing. Last week with the trough, where it was, the coastal areas actually weren't too bad. Long Island wasn't too bad. This time the trough's going to be a little bit further to the east. So, I think it may be a bit dicey, or let's say a bit more dicey. So we'll watch it together as we go through the week. So do remind me. 95, oppressive in Rochester. At your station in Greece, New York today. I can say that I have been to Greece, New York. I actually stayed in Greece, New York a couple of years ago when I was upstate salmon fishing. J.S. Sweetie, any signs of this pattern breaking on the longer range at this point? I may ask this every day. Well, we need to get a deeper trough in order to tap in some really nice dry air and dew points down in the 50s or even lower. We don't have that right now. We have just enough of that northern jet coming down in order to maybe edge the dew points down ever so slightly Thursday and Friday. But I've been kind of hashtagging all this bad hair weather, and I think we're going to be able to carry that through at least into the middle part of next week. Eventually, one of these troughs in the east is going to be deep enough to bring down a nice, decent shot of dry air. It can't stay humid forever, obviously. Notice, by the way, we mentioned this last week, Notice, by the way, we showed you the temperature maps before. We didn't see any kind of crazy hot, high temperatures because of the fact, I think, the soil moisture content is very high, and I think that's actually helping to hold the temperatures down. G-White 713, the Lake Ontario is freezing though. Lots of laughs. No one in the water, just laying on the shores, ankle waiting. I saw a map, G-White. One of my friends that lives up there put up that the temperatures up in Lake Ontario, the water temperatures for your area, for the lake, are actually pretty warm, in the middle to upper 70s. I mean, for somebody that swims in an ocean where ocean water temperatures here are in the mid to upper 70s, we kind of call that warm because that's basically as warm as it ever gets around here. I'm thinking, my understanding, I saw some pockets of 78, 79 just offshore. That's not too bad for you. You just probably need to go in and just kind of get used to it. Oh, 3 feet down, it's ice water. Yeah, oh, absolutely. The surface temperature is one thing, but I'm sure, once you go down 4, 5, 6 feet, yeah, the water temperature is going to be a whole lot colder. And all it's going to take is for one very windy day to upwell that water anyway. So, but you probably, I haven't really been paying attention to what the wind conditions there, so I don't know how much you probably haven't had a whole lot of upwelling in the last several days, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the surface water temperatures are so high. And that's a real concern, G. White, cramping from the cold. Absolutely. Cold water, it doesn't take long. You start getting involved with cold water down in the low 60s or lower. You can die very quickly from exposure. Your respiratory system can shut down really, really fast. So even the best of swimmers can have a very, very tough time without a wetsuit. A 3 cornstarch cup day in Pennsylvania from Charlie Baker. Well put. I think that very well that describes very well what we're going through. Let's see. Timothy Veltman, you are taking care of Nick's questions for me tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. As you discuss the mating rituals of the bees. Just trying to make sure I got everybody here. Lightning Bugs with James NASCAR fan. Joyce Mack. Exactly on the sunburn. Iron Mind with great advice for staying cool. Delvin 4519, several 90-degree days in Boston coming. Actually, the departure from normal in New England has been higher than it is over me. Our temperatures here are a little bit above normal. In New England, it's a bit more than just a little bit above normal. And by the way, let me remind everyone that today being August 6th, starting tomorrow in many areas, and if not tomorrow, certainly on Wednesday, you start to see a drop in the average high, average low temperature. It begins its slow descent, and then when we get to September, that descent accelerates. So we are just about at the end of the peak of the summer, and then it starts to go downhill. The hurricane season doesn't peak for another 5 weeks. Okay, the statistical peak being at around August 10th. VT, saying hi to you back. Thank you for, got to get tough G.I. Joe. Absolutely. Thomas Saul, hi back from Connecticut. Hi back to you, Thomas Saul from Connecticut. We get a nice wide audience here. Stephen Franco on tonight. And of course, the usual suspects like Jason Schaefer talking about Cirrus, the dog star in the sky this time of year. I think we could certainly make the weather connection with the dog days. To me, it's when we have those lengthening nights, very warm, very humid nights that go on for days and days and days at a time. But of course, we've kind of had that over the last week plus. And Johnny Quest hasn't been close to 90, but the humidity is brutal. Yeah. With all that moisture around, with all the rain you have, you're basically dealing with swamp conditions. And pay close attention to the weather over the next several days and how the models handle this next trough, because that could mean more unnecessary and not wanted rainfall for your neck of the woods. Okay, folks, we're going to leave it right here. Again, to remind everybody, if you are watching with respect to getting information on Hurricane Hector, this is obviously dated 6 o'clock. We are at 6:33 Eastern Time. You want to check the latest from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. You can access that by going to nhc.noaa.gov, and you can from there find a link to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. If just Google it, okay? It's a little too long for me to just give it to read it out, because you won't remember it. So just Google it, Central Pacific Hurricane Center. And with respect to any information that you might need with regards to making any sorts of decisions, you want to always consult your local government officials or the National Hurricane Center or the Weather Service, which you can access at weather.gov. The radar, again, severe weather, if you're checking in later on, weather.gov, check your local National Weather Service office for the latest with regards to any severe weather watches or warnings that might be up. Just again, as always, to mention that we've got links to Amazon and Ebates on the descriptor to this live stream and on the descriptor to this video if you're watching it later. We are a participant in the affiliate programs of both Amazon and Ebates. Those programs are designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and Ebates. Amazon, you get your stuff, they throw me back some coin. Ebates, you can get additional cash back by shopping not just at Amazon, but any of probably just about every major retailer around. And thank you for those of you who have used it. Thank you tonight for those of you who have hit Super Chat. Really appreciate it. William Huber, Nick Cortese, and of course, Johnny Quest. Buckets your way in case the rains come. Have a great evening, everybody. We will see you tonight, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, tonight on Facebook. It could be plus or minus 15 minutes either side of 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And we'll update you on Hector and the Pacific Tropics, and, of course, what's going on with respect to severe weather later this evening and what we think is going to happen in the short, medium, and longer term. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you either later on Facebook, meteorologist Joe Cioffi or Joe Rayo Weather, or we'll see you tomorrow.